Hi, I'm Laura Purdy Salas. I'm a picture book author, and I'm just going to share a few thoughts on how you share picture books with young readers and writers, and how thinking about that, how that might influence my actual writing, and also how I actually do it after a book comes out. And I'm going to use my three new books as examples, as case studies. They are, get myself out of the way. Um, they are In the Middle of the Night, Poems from a Wide Awake House, which is from Word Song, and Lion of the Sky, Haiku for All Seasons, which is from Millbrook, and Snowman minus Cold equals Puddle, Spring Equations, which is from Charlesbridge. So In the Middle of the Night is a collection of imagination-filled poems. And when I was writing these poems, one thing that I did think of is, that I want poems that are fun to say out loud. I do a fair number of school visits and library visits, and so I read my poems with students, and I have at points found myself thinking, wow, I need more poems that have some repetition or that lend themselves to interaction. And, I will always change up a printed poem to make it more fun to do in person if I need to. But I was conscious of kind of wanting a little bit more of that in my poetry in this collection, and especially wanting maybe some action-y kind of poems. So I'm going to share a couple of things with you from this poem. Oh, this one. So first of all, I love books, which I would guess every one of you who is watching this loves books. And I will always work in a book inside a book if I can. So in this case, this collection of poems is about what a kid's belongings are doing at night while he or she is asleep. And so I had to put a book poem in here. It's called Overdue Book Hide and Seek, and the awesome art is by Angela Madison. I'm not in your backpack or under your bed, and you have to find me, Miss Teabottom said. I creep to your closet. I burrow. I sneak. I love to play overdue book hide and seek. And as I was writing that, I just thought, oh my gosh, it would be so much fun to have kids pretending to be books as I'm reading this aloud, and we're all like sneaking around really quietly on tiptoes. So I haven't done that yet. I'm thinking it will be at kind of a toddler story time or something, so we'll see. I wanted at least one poem with a refrain in it. So I'd rather stick with you has a refrain of I'm lonely without my girl. And the stick that the girl has been playing with during the day, and now it's nighttime, the girl's asleep, and the stick is feeling, kind of left out and lonely. I'm not going to read it to you because I read it in one of the other videos in this series, but I do want to share a couple of other things with you. I use some sound effects, knowing that that makes it fun to read out loud. So the little, matchbox size car that is on a fruit roll-up racetrack and gets stuck, and he's beeping, beep, beep at the end of the poem. So nice and loud and easy to read out loud with kids. I have a poem for two voices, and it's called Shoes for All Seasons, and it's flip-flops and winter boots, and they're talking to each other. And this is really cool to be able to read together with a group, or me and a couple of other adults who are in the room, where one of us takes the flip-flops part, the other one takes the winter boots part, and we read our lines, back and forth. Let's see, there were a couple of other things. Oh, the Mixed Up Mixing Bowl. I've been reading this one with kids, and it's fun because we can act it out. Um, it's Mixed Up Mixing Bowl, and there's the art. I tilt and twirl, a blurry swirl. I spin into a tizzy. I wobble, sway, a bowl ballet. Oopsie, now I'm dizzy. And basically, I just tried to use um, a lot of language that would be fun and easy for kids to say, and also things that we could act out. That was kind of my approach in this book, In the Middle of the Night, for sharing with kids. Also on my website, and I'll have the page at the end, but on my website, in the page for this particular book, Angela and I, but mostly Angela, the illustrator, created some fabulous coloring pages and word finds and things like that that look great and make it really easy for teachers or librarians or parents to give their kid something to do to interact with this book. Also, I have a Padlet there, which is it's just an app where anybody can add stuff to it. And I invite kids or adults to share their own nighttime poems. And yeah, so that's my way of inviting readers and writers into the book and to take it further, to take in the nighttime poems. And then I love to work with young writers, so I'm hoping they'll write some of their own. And in fact, a couple of teachers have had their students writing some nighttime poems and have added them to the Padlet, which is awesome. All right, Lion of the Sky. So for this one, I felt like the way to share this would be so easy and natural because these are riddle poems. So what I do when I share them with students is I read them just the text and I don't show them the picture. So I would do something like this. I shared poems at a elementary school last week, and so here's how I would do it. Okay, kids, I have a riddle poem for you, and I want you to listen really closely to the words because there are clues in there. And some of these riddle poems are easier and some are harder, but we'll see how you do, okay? I search under oaks and gather tasty treasures. Winter is coming. And so I would read it and I wouldn't show them the picture. And then I would say, okay, so here are some words that I think were really important in that poem. Whoever is narrating this poem is looking around and hoping to gather tasty, so something to eat for winter. What do you think that might be? Does anybody have a guess? And then usually several people will have guesses and someone will say the right answer. Now, sometimes kids guess the wrong answer, and that's great too. I mean, that of course I don't want to make anybody feel bad, so I'll say, oh, I can see why you might have thought that the word whatever, that you thought was a clue to that answer, but here were what I saw as the important words. And it's just been so fun. I mean, even before the book came out, on school visits for the past year or so, I've been sharing some of these equation poems. And teachers love them because it's close reading. It's only a few words, but it's really paying attention to those words. Here's another one. And I like this one especially because you can kind of act it out and invite students to act it out. So I would say, okay, I'm going to read a riddle poem to you. Shh, Here's my secret. Soft petals hide inside me. Coming soon, a bloom. And then I tell kids, okay, so think about, I was sharing these with kindergarten and first graders this week. So with older students, they would probably, pick up on those important words. But with really young students, or kids at a story time or something, I help them find the important words. So I'll say, so what has petals and it turns into a bloom? So it's something that blooms. And by that time, everybody's raising their hand and they want to tell you that it's a flower. And so then sometimes if it's an act-outable one, I'll read it again and they'll do motions with me, the shh and coming soon a bloom, and we'll all bloom together. So by their very nature, these riddle poems are just so interactive. And on the page on my website, I have a Padlet where kids could try writing their own riddle coup. Those are supposed to come through adults, so through a teacher or a parent. I don't invite the kids directly. And I have, a couple of other resources for kids on the Lion of the Sky page. And then there's Snowman minus cold equals puddle, which is with Charles Bridge. And this is another one that is highly, highly interactive. And so I knew while I was writing it that it would be easy and fun to share these with students. So what I did last week. Now the spreads I'm going to share with you here, a couple of them. These are not the final. It's not the final design and the final art. So these, don't look as good as the actual book. They're just for the purposes of sharing this with you. So what I would do is I would say, gosh, I wrote down, I thought that when I walked by this plant, it smelled like perfume. And so maybe on the whiteboard, I will write like bush times blank equals perfume. And then I'll say, what else do I need? The bush by itself, not all bushes smell like perfume. What has to be on that bush to actually make the answer be perfume? And we'll talk a little bit about that. Some kids will say flowers. Some kids might even get more specific. And so having them try to fill in the blanks is great. And sometimes they'll think of a word that means the same thing as what I said. And, so I will just agree that, yes, we thought of that. But I also use it as an opportunity to point out that many of these have more than one answer to them. So if I gave them the first two, bushes times blooms, and I covered up perfume, if I said, what do you get when you take bushes times blooms? Some people would probably come up with, something that smells good. So they might say perfume or something along those lines. Other people might say a bouquet, because they're thinking about picking those flowers. So I like to use this to encourage kids to use their own imagination and to come up with other answers or other words besides mine that also work and that they think are true. Same thing here. I was just sharing this one. Again, this is not the final page, but I was sharing breeze plus kite equals ballet. And so I had said, I noticed kites look like they're dancing up in the sky. And so I wrote this equation, blank plus kite equals ballet. And then I asked kids, what a kite by itself just lies there on the ground. What do we have to have with the kite? What can we add to the kite to equal ballet? And most of the kids came up very quickly with the right answer, with wind or breeze or gust or whatever. And some kids also thought of things like string or a person. So excuse me, again, it's a great opportunity to remind kids that even though a book says one thing, that doesn't mean it's the only right thing, and to really reinforce their own creativity and imagination. And one thing I did while I was writing this book, I knew I would want to be encouraging kids to write their own equations too. But the equations in this book are about specific things in spring, but I wanted to bring it to a bigger, more important level, that it's not just about nature. And so the last equation is U plus the world equals. And so I put that up on the board last week, and then I told kids, do you know how I answered that? I answered it with a question mark, because I can't answer that for you. Each one of us decides what impact we have on the world. How do I affect the world? How does the world affect me? And then I asked kids, so if you were writing this about yourself and you said you plus the world equals, what would your answer be? And the kids came up with everything from very specific things like, football or their favorite video game or something. But many of the kids really embraced the larger question there. And they answered with things like love and family and learning new things and life. So it was just so awesome to see what they came up with, and to be able to, really tell them, yes, that is amazing. That's just how I was hoping you would answer it. On my website, the page for that one, which is this middle one with snowman, I have, you can print out an activity sheet to write your own equation. There's a Padlet to add, add your equation to. Okay, sorry, coughing jag there. But anyway, so on my website on these pages, there are a lot of resources and ideas and activity pages and ways that I hope that teachers and librarians and parents will find to help their kids interact with the book. Not just to read it, but to do something with it. And, I like to offer those things online in addition to the thought I've already put into the book while writing it about how can I make this fun for a kid. And in addition to, if I'm lucky enough to get to actually share the book in person with a young reader, doing things to make it really active and to make the reader a part of the process, not just a recipient of something, but a part of creating what that book is in that moment. Okay, I hope those thoughts are interesting or helpful to you. And I am Laura Purdy Salas, and thanks so much for watching this video.